I get it when you're looking for a new amp, you're not just scrolling through a list of specs hoping something sounds cool. You want an amp that will sit in your bedroom or on your gig rack, hold up night after night, and actually sound good when you finally get to play. The fear of splurging on something that sounds amazing in a store demo but then turns into a headache at home is real, especially when you're juggling a limited budget and a kitchen-sized practice space. That's why I spent a few days digging through forums, watching live streams, and reading the handful of reviews that actually exist for the Fender Blues Deluxe Reissue Tweed. If you want to check the product details on Amazon, link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Blues Deluxe Reissue is part of Fender's Tweed line, which means the cabinet is wrapped in that classic, honey-colored fabric that a lot of vintage enthusiasts love. It's not just for looks, either Tweed does a decent job of dampening the sound a bit, which can be a blessing if you're in a small apartment and need to keep the volume in check without sacrificing tone. At 40 watts, this amp sits right in that sweet spot between a low-watt practice combo and a full-blown stage rig. It's loud enough to fill a small club, but you can also back off to a bedroom-friendly level without the tone getting thin or mushy. Who should actually consider this amp? If you're a guitarist who plays blues, classic rock, or any style that thrives on warm clean tones and a bit of overdrive, the Blues Deluxe Reissue can be a solid home-to-gig solution. The single 12-inch Eminence speaker is tuned specifically for mid-range richness, which translates to that singer-in-the-room vibe many players crave when they're jamming with a band. It's also a good match for players who like to experiment with pedals because the amp's own overdrive sits low enough in the signal chain that you can stack it with a pedal without the sound turning into a wall of noise. If you're the kind of player who likes to dial in a clean, slightly chimey tone and then push a knob to get a creamy breakup, this amp will meet you where you're at. On the flip side, if you're hunting for massive headroom, a 100-watt beast, or a stack that can dominate a large venue, this one probably isn't the right fit. Its 40-watt output caps out before you hit that arena-ready roar, and the single speaker can feel a little thin if you're trying to compete with a full drum kit in a big room. Also, if you're a guitarist who leans heavily on modern high-gain sounds, think metal or heavy rock shred, this amp's natural character won't provide the saturated aggression you might be looking for. In that case, a higher gain amp or a solid-state model with more aggressive voicing would be a better investment. Now, let's talk about the practical strengths that show up when you actually plug it in. The first thing most people notice is the reverb. Fender's spring reverb has been a staple for decades, and the Blues Deluxe Reissue keeps that tradition alive. It's not just an afterthought, the reverb unit is integrated nicely, offering a smooth, lush tail that works well with both clean and overdriven tones. When you're playing a slow blues shuffle or a mellow fingerstyle piece, adding a little reverb can really make the instrument feel spacious without sounding artificial. On the other hand, the reverb isn't a replace for the room effect that you'd get from a digital unit. It's genuine analog spring reverb, and that means it has a slight wobble character that can be a pro for vintage vibe players but a con for anyone who wants a pristine, studio-clean ambience. Another real-world benefit is the way the amp handles volume and gain. The control layout is straightforward: volume, treble, bass, reverb, and a single gain knob. What you'll find is that the gain knob does a lot more than just push the signal into distortion. It also reshapes the tone so that you get that classic Fender breakup where the mids stay present and the highs don't become piercing. This makes it enjoyable for live gigs where you need to keep your tone consistent across different venues. In practice, I've seen guitarists use the amp at a modest volume and still achieve a satisfying overdriven sound, especially when they back off the treble just a notch to tame the edge. Where the Blues Deluxe Reissue shows its hidden trade-offs is in the speaker's voice. The Eminence 12-inch speaker is designed to amplify mid-range frequencies, which is fantastic when you want that warm, vocal-like tone. However, because it emphasizes mids, the highs can feel a bit rolled off when you crank the amp. If you're used to a bright, cutting tone, think of a Stratocaster with a lot of high-end sparkle. You may need to compensate with your guitar's pickup selection or an EQ pedal to bring those highs back. It's a small,